Welcome to another episode of our Let's Talk Tri-Delta podcast. I'm so glad that you've joined us today. I'm Mindy Tucker, Tri-Delta's CEO, and each year Tri-Delta recognizes a few extraordinary women who are exemplifying Tri-Delta values and paving the way for the next generation of women. I am excited today to introduce you to one of those women. Sylvia Kerrigan from our Theta Epsilon chapter at Southwestern University has been named a 2025 Woman of Achievement. She is an accomplished legal mind, an energy industry leader, and a dedicated mentor to future professionals. She's a dual citizen of the US and Brazil. We'll get into that a little bit. She also attended the University of Texas Law School, clerked for Texas Supreme Court Justice Eugene Cook. After graduating from law school, she joined the firm of Clan, Bell, and Murphy. She practiced international corporate law, maritime law, insurance, and complex civil litigation. There's a lot to unpack there. During the next 22 years of her career, she served as the executive vice president and general counsel and corporate secretary at Marathon Oil Corporation. And while she was there, she was named a top 10 exploration and production executive by the Houston Business Journal. She received the Ernest E. Smith Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of her contributions to the energy industry. She took a leave from there to serve the United Nations Security Council as on their Commission de Immunization. I'm not going to get that right.
You got it.
In Geneva. In 2022, this is like the most exemplary bio I get to read through here. In 2022, she joined Oxy as a senior VP and chief legal officer. She serves on the board of trustees at Southwestern University, currently as a vice chair of the board and as a chair of the trusteeship committee. She also serves in the executive committee of the Kay Bailey Hutchison Energy Center at the University of Texas, where she previously had the privilege to serve as their executive director. I am going to take a big breath now after all of those accomplishments and that esteemed career and introduce you to Sylvia Kerrigan. Hi, Sylvia. Thanks for joining.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to see that my mom was able to provide you with that bio because only mother would say all that.
I don't know. Proud mom, proud Tri Delta, same
Yeah.
thing, right? We're very proud to have you in our sisterhood. I'm so excited for you to get to know our listeners today, or them to get to know you. Let's start off with a little background. I want to dig into this dual citizenship that you have with the US and Brazil. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about that.
Well, I guess I'm just a small town girl. The twist is that the small town was in the Amazon in Brazil. And I was a surprise baby. My brother and sister were 14 and 12 years older than me. And so I don't know. My parents were fairly sure that they were done having kids and there must have been something in the water. So here I am, still a small town girl, but back in the States. And
Yeah,
so yeah, it was just a twist of fate, but yeah, I loved it.
that's awesome. What drew you to Southwestern University? Did you come from Brazil at that time to do that?
Yeah, my dad got really sick in the Amazon, and so we ended up back in the States. And he was a small town person growing up. He and my mom grew up in Giddings, and so they settled back in a small town in Texas, in the shadow of Southwestern University. And I was extremely shy all growing up, and so. I had decided that I was going to go off and go to TCU actually for college. And at the last minute that summer, I got cold feet. And so my hometown alma mater, Southwestern University, agreed to take me in. And that's how I ended up there.
Okay, all right. And then you joined Tri Delta there. What was that journey like?
Like experiencing tremendous grace because I was still a very awkward and shy and uncomfortable small town person. I didn't know any Tri Deltas in advance. I didn't know any alumni. I'm not a legacy. Really, it was just experiencing that helping hand and that friendship and that unconditional love, and so it was a major gift in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Do you have any standout memories from your Tri Delta collegiate experience? Things that you can still look back on today and say, wow, that was just such a great time, or
Oh gosh, I mean, my whole experience was transformational. I really learned to be myself at Southwestern. I got a voice from, being with my sisters. Really kind of learned who I was. I had some wonderful sisters and roommates, and I had a sister, Sally Shuford, who could make anything in a popcorn popper, in an old-fashioned popcorn popper. She could make queso, but I mean, that's easy. But she could make fudge in a popcorn popper. I mean, we weren't allowed a kitchen, but it's amazing what she could make. We called driving around in a small town, we called it rolling. So we spent a lot of time driving, um, even a lot more time trying to figure out like the meaning of life. And, just that feeling that you get of inclusion where you know that, none of you will be left behind, that you have
yeah.
that network.
Yeah. So funny. I think about my experience a lot, and it was belonging. I don't think we knew that word back then to call it
Yeah,
that. But that's what we
yeah,
had
yeah.
in those experiences. So how did you end up going to law school? Is that something you knew you always wanted to do?
Oh gosh, my father said I could be anything I wanted to be grow up when I grew up, as long as it was a doctor or a lawyer, and I was afraid of blood.
You were what?
Afraid of blood.
Right. So there you go. That made your choice.
So that was that on, and despite Sally's best efforts, I wasn't particularly good at biology in college. So I came out with a philosophy degree, which meant that I was eminently qualified to be a waitress when I graduated from college, but I turned out to not be a very good waitress either, and that's why I'm a lawyer.
Okay. I think there's a lot more to it than that, but I love it. So, tell me about your early career then. You get out of law school and what happens? How do you get on that sort of career path?
Well, I decided that I really wanted to, it was, just, I really enjoyed maritime law, which is international shipping, and whatever happens in the ocean. So I became a maritime lawyer, and that led me to Houston, and that led me to the energy industry because so much of the energy industry at the time was offshore. And so I fell in love with energy,
Okay.
and the rest is kind of history. That's how I sort of lucked into my career.
Were there particular people or mentors along the way that supported you and helped you?
Yeah, I mean, oh, Mindy, I'm afraid that that's going to be like an Academy Award acceptance speech where I never stop and then I've still forgotten people, so I hesitate. But I did have, I had a couple of great mentors, my first bosses in maritime law, and people who took a chance on me, uh, and who just kind of, in spite of all appearances to the contrary, told me that I was going to be able to do this. And
Did you have
that's
women that you could look to? I mean, it's because I would think energy in particular, that the maritime law, that's probably not at that time very heavily populated by women. So
no,
how were you able to kind of see yourself in that world?
I really didn't see myself in that world, but I had such a great support system, and that included, you know, one of my older sisters at Tri Delta, Jean, at the time her name was Jean Jansen, and she was a lawyer. She came to Houston. She helped me get a clerkship, uh, and I just kind of leaned on people like that and decided that this was my dumb idea, that I wanted to pursue this maritime law. And now I work for a female CEO. First time I've ever worked for a woman.
Mhm.
And she's just like setting the world on fire, doing all sorts of exciting things on the energy transition. And I guess we just kind of all grew up discovering it together.
Yeah. How did the opportunity at the United Nations come about?
Uh, honestly, I kind of accidentally got a job while I was on vacation. I was in Geneva and I was meeting with one of my friends there from law school actually, and he introduced me to the folks who were running this indemnization committee, which in English is the indemnification,
Right.
committee.
Right.
So it's the folks who were hurt when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. They put together a fund and we administered, we basically did arbitrations to determine how much they needed to be paid back for their losses. And some of the really big losses were energy companies. And I came from an energy company. So I started talking to them about that. And the next thing you knew, they offered me a job.
Wow. Wow. And you lived in Geneva for that.
Lived in Geneva, but spent most of the time in the Middle East. So another place where there weren't a lot of female role models.
Right. What an amazing experience I bet that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Really blessed.
And so then you were going to retire. You had this crazy idea to retire, and then you didn't. Uh,
Oh, I retired. I retired 5 years. I went off and ran an energy center at the University of Texas
okay.
as their executive director, just like your executive director. And so, um, Matt, my husband, laughs and he says, um, I didn't really retire. I was just under new management. And I guess that's true. But
It doesn't sound like retirement to me.
technically, I was no longer a lawyer. I was doing this, just for love of the university and an interest in seeing, new people come into the industry that had done so much for me and meant so much, in my opinion, for the world. So that's what I was doing, and I met this fabulous woman, Vicky Holub, and got to know her a little bit, and then she talked me out of retirement. So that's why I'm back at work.
And here we are. Here we
Here
are.
we are.
I love that. Um, so everything feels very busy. There are lots of things that you've juggled over the years. How do you find balance in your life, especially as a woman in business leadership and other pursuits?
I I meditate, I do yoga, I walk dogs, I drink the occasional wine. Um, but honestly, my like the wind beneath my wings and the touchstone that keeps everything together is my husband, Matt.
Oh,
So
love that. And that may be a similar answer to this next question, but I know myself in a leadership position, running a business. Not everything goes as planned. Not everything is shiny and happy roses all the time. How do you handle setbacks and keep moving forward?
you know, I um I guess that I have never believed that there was just one way to get from point A to point B, and kind of my career has been helping other people get from point A to point B, even though they can't do it in the way that they maybe think that they want to. So it's a little bit ingrained in me. I think it's also kind of I'm talking to you, I'm realizing it's also kind of my personal story, right? Which is just I didn't I didn't do this. This was done for me, and I at best co-created it. I have a friend who says, we are in control of nothing, but we influence everything.
Mm,
And I do believe that. I mean, if
yeah.
we're in control, just, if you want to hear God laugh, tell her your dreams. And, but yeah, you influence how you show up influences everything.
Hmm. Hmm. And that difference in control and influence and what those words mean, I think is really important there. Um, so here we are. The reason we're talking is you've been named a 2025 Woman of Achievement for TriDelta, which is just so lovely to be able to share with you and recognize you in this way. How does it feel to receive this honor from an organization you care about? What does that recognition mean to you?
I mean, it's just as improbable to me today as it was the day that Tri Delta first opened its arms for me, right? So it's just a feeling of um, surprise and just gratitude for the organization's graciousness.
Yeah, love
I
that.
mean, it's me who should honor you, not the other way around.
Well, we're happy to honor you and recognize you. Um, I think one of the things we learn in Tri Delta, and it's talked about a lot in this sort of how we serve others, this passion for service that is sort of ingrained in us. And you've carried that out. You've been on several boards. You've continued your philanthropic work. What are some of the organizations you've been involved in? How have you sort of carried that passion for service out in your life?
So you've already been kind enough to mention a couple of higher ed education initiatives that I'm on boards for, both my alma mater, Southwestern and UT, who along with Tri Delta transformed my life. So I'm happy to be able to give back to that. Um, where Matt and I are, in terms of just giving our personal time, we're passionate about animal assisted therapy, which is basically a long way of saying our dogs are certified to go into Texas Children's Hospital and visit kids, and we do that every couple of weeks. Um, we do pro bono work, which is just providing free legal services to people who otherwise are unable to pay for access to the legal system. So that is an expensive system to try to access. We care about cultural missions, like we're members of the Asia Society, Interfaith Ministries, Woods Hole Research Institution up in New England, where we were retired to. So those are some of the some, but again, I don't want to get into an Academy Awards
Yeah, I know.
ceremony because
Something.
that's just that's just today,
Yeah.
and we're grateful for every opportunity we have to pay it back and to pay it forward. But leaving that aside, every day provides us with unscripted moments to reach out and help. And so ask me again in a year and I'll probably have a different list.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think are some other lessons that Tri Delta taught you that you still see in your life today?
Well, I think that it's so funny. I'm ostensibly the chair of our trusteeship committee at Southwestern University, but my sister, Jean Jansen, who I've referred to before, is on my committee. And so I may not have ever been a great student and I may not have ever, technically learned Robert's Rules of Order, but I can assure you that Jean did, and Jean was a good student. And so I'll be doing something like leading a meeting and I'll say, well, will somebody make a motion? And Jean will be like, well, Sylvia, there's already a motion on the floor. It has to be withdrawn before you can make another motion. And so to this day, I mean, I've learned how to run meetings, how to work with people from all sorts of different backgrounds. I've learned how to extend and receive trust and grace. But to this day, I still learn from sisters, about important things such as how to conduct meetings.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a good cadre of Tri Delta women that you're still close to, at least Jean and maybe some others. And is that what it looks like in your life today?
Yeah, very much so. And it's impressive the when we go back to Southwestern and we get together with the current, with the current chapter members. They are so awesome and so amazing. I had to give a speech at Southwestern about a year ago, and like 20 members of the sorority showed up to cheer me on. I
Nice.
mean, how is that? Because I still am pretty shy and don't really, like doing stuff like that. And so they just all showed up and made me feel welcome and like it was all going to be okay.
Yeah. That's what we do. We show up for our sisters, right?
That's right.
That. So what comes next for you? staying in this current position? Anything else on the horizon?
I don't know. I think uh, uh, as long as I'm useful to my current team, I'm super grateful to help them. They're an amazing team. I'm trying to develop them as well, so I don't want to be in their way. I want to, give them whatever they need from me, and then I want to get out of their way and watch them thrive. So I'm at the age where I'm lucky enough to be able to retire again. As soon as they tell me to get the heck out of the way, they've got it from here. And maybe Matt and I'll do some traveling. But in the meantime, I guess they're not quite done with me yet.
Well, I don't know that anyone's ever going to want to be done with you. You're a delight, and I love hearing your story and all the little facets that sort of fit around it and how you ended up in the spaces you ended up with. Thanks for sharing everything with us today.
Well, Mindy, thank you for offering to let me to share this with you because you know you and what you're doing is so important to making sure that there are a lot of other better Sylvias out there.
We are training up a ton of Sylvias out there. I love that.
Excellent. Well, tell them not to be so scared.
We'll let them listen to the podcast and you can tell.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad for our listeners that you got to hear from Sylvia and get to know her a little bit. We're so excited to honor her as a 2025 Woman of Achievement. We'll be continuing our discussions with Women of Achievement and look forward to honoring them in person next year at our convention next summer. So looking forward to that. Do you know a distinguished Delta like Sylvia? If you do, we'd love to learn about her. You can go to tridelta.org, and under our story, there's a Distinguished Deltas page, and you can click into there and recommend somebody to be recognized in this way. So take a minute to do that. We hope you'll like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We love those 5-star ratings, even though we only have 3 stars in our crescent. Thanks for joining us today, everybody, and until next time, Delta Love.